There's a single moment where everything shifts. It's not in what you say. It's not even in how you look at her. It's in how you touch her. And I'm not talking about anything complicated. I'm talking about a hug. One hug. Done right, it creates a memory she can't shake. Done wrong, it's just forgettable. You want to know the difference between the guy she thinks about later and the guy she forgets the second he walks away? It's in the details of that embrace. And today I want to show you exactly what those details are. Because here's what most people don't understand. A hug is not just a gesture. It's a conversation your body is having with hers, beneath the surface of words, underneath conscious thought. And when you learn to speak that language with intention, with presence, with emotional clarity, you create something she feels in her chest, in her skin, in the part of her brain that decides who she remembers. Let's talk about the science first. Then we'll get into exactly how to do this. Your skin is the largest organ in your body, and woven throughout it are millions of touch receptors, tiny biological sensors that send signals directly to your brain the moment someone makes contact with you. But here's where it gets interesting. Not all touch is created equal. When someone touches you with hesitation, with uncertainty, with a kind of awkwardness, your nervous system picks up on that immediately. Your brain registers it as discomfort, as neediness, as a request for something rather than an offering of something. But when someone touches you with calm confidence, with full presence, with intention, your brain responds completely differently. It releases oxytocin. You've probably heard of oxytocin before. It's often called the bonding hormone or the love hormone. And while those labels are a bit simplistic, they're not wrong. Oxytocin is what floods your system when you feel safe with someone, when you feel seen, when you feel held, not just physically, but emotionally. It's what a mother's body releases when she holds her newborn. It's what your brain produces when you're with someone you trust deeply. And yes, it's what gets activated during moments of romantic and sexual connection. But here's the key. Oxytocin doesn't get released just because someone touches you. It gets released when the touch feels right, when it feels secure, when it feels like the person touching you is calm, grounded, and fully there. That's the difference. A man who hugs with doubt, who touches like he's asking permission even after it's been given, who holds on too long because he's starving for affection, that man doesn't create oxytocin. He creates discomfort. But a man who hugs with clarity, who touches like he knows exactly what he's doing and has no need to apologize for it, that man activates something primal, something that doesn't need explanation, something she just feels. And that feeling? That's what I'm going to teach you to create. Most men hug like they're completing a social obligation. They go through the motions, pat on the back, quick squeeze, maybe a smile. Then it's over. And that's fine. That's what you do with your buddy. That's what you do with your aunt at Thanksgiving. But if you want her to feel something, if you want to leave an imprint on her nervous system, you can't approach it like a checklist item. You have to understand that a hug is emotional communication. Think about it. When someone speaks to you in a monotone voice, with no emotion, no inflection, no presence, do you remember what they said 5 minutes later? Probably not. But when someone speaks to you with full presence, with intention, with emotional weight behind their words, you remember, you feel it. Touch works the same way. A hug without intention is like a sentence without meaning. It's just there. But a hug with purpose, with emotional clarity, with a subtle tension underneath the surface, that hug creates a reaction. And the reaction I'm talking about isn't just psychological. It's physiological. When you hug her the right way, her body responds before her mind even catches up. Her heart rate shifts, her breathing changes, her skin becomes more sensitive. She might even get goosebumps, actual, physical goosebumps, because her nervous system is responding to the way you're holding her. That's not manipulation. That's communication. You're speaking a language her body understands. And when you speak it fluently, when you speak it with confidence and calm, she listens. Phase 1. The positioning. Where your hands go matters. Let's get tactical. The first mistake most men make is not knowing where to place their hands during a hug, and I get it. It seems like a small detail, but small details create big differences. If you put your hands on her waist too early, especially if you barely know her, it feels invasive. Too intimate too soon. It crosses a boundary she hasn't opened yet. If you put your hands on her shoulders, it feels friendly, brotherly, like you're hugging your cousin. Neither of those options creates the effect we're going for. So where do your hands go? The center of her back, right where her spine meets the natural tension point between her shoulder blades. Here's why that works. That part of the back is neutral territory. It's not overly intimate like the lower back or waist, but it's not distant like the shoulders. It's the sweet spot. But more importantly, when you place your hand there with firmness, not aggression but presence, you activate a deep instinctive response. From an evolutionary standpoint, the back is where we feel protected. It's the part of our body we can't see. The part we have to trust someone else to cover. When you place your hand there with calm confidence, her nervous system registers it as security. And here's the subtle psychology. Your hand shouldn't just rest there passively. It should be present, firm enough that she feels it, steady enough that it communicates, I'm here, I'm not nervous, I'm not asking for anything, I'm just here. That presence creates a micro shift in her perception of you. She doesn't think, oh, he's confident, she just feels it, and feelings are what create attraction. Phase 2, the golden interval. Timing is everything. Now let's talk about duration. How long should the hug last? This is where most men screw up. They either pull away too quickly, which reads as discomfort or disinterest, or they hold on too long, which reads as neediness. The sweet spot? 2 to 4 seconds. I know that sounds weirdly specific, but there's a reason for it. Less than 2 seconds, and the hug doesn't register emotionally. It's too quick. It feels like you're in a rush, like you're uncomfortable with closeness, like you're avoiding intimacy even in a simple moment. More than 4 seconds and it starts to shift into something else. It starts to feel like you're clinging, like you're trying to extract something from her, like the hug is serving your need rather than creating a shared moment. But 2 to 4 seconds, that's the zone where magic happens. It's long enough for her nervous system to relax into it, long enough for oxytocin to start releasing, long enough for her to register, consciously or unconsciously, that you're comfortable in your own skin. And here's the key during those 2 to 4 seconds. You have to be fully present, not thinking about what you're going to say next, not wondering if you're doing it right, not rehearsing lines in your head, just there, breathe, slow, calm, deep. Not in an exaggerated, obvious way, just naturally. Let your body communicate calm. Let your nervous system send the message, I'm not in a hurry, I don't need anything from you, I'm just enjoying this moment. Because here's the thing, she can feel whether you're present or not. If your mind is somewhere else, if you're anxious, if you're performing, she picks up on it. Maybe not consciously, but her body knows. But if you're genuinely there, genuinely calm, genuinely grounded, she feels that too, and that is what creates the goosebumps. Phase 3, the whisper, the spark that shifts everything. All right, this is where things get interesting. In the final second of the hug, right before you begin to pull away, you do something most men never think to do. You lean in just slightly, your mouth near her ear, and you say something. Not loud, not performative, just a whisper, but not just any whisper. It has to be the right kind of whisper. Here's what I mean. The words you choose should do 2 things simultaneously. They should compliment her in an indirect way, and they should create a tiny bit of tension, a question mark in her mind, something she'll replay later. For example, you smell dangerous. Or, I wasn't expecting that. Or, you're trouble, aren't you? These aren't traditional compliments. They're not, you're beautiful or you smell nice. Those are fine. But they're expected. They're safe. What you want is something that makes her pause. Something that makes her think, wait, what did he mean by that? Because here's the psychology. The human brain is wired to seek closure. When something is left open-ended, when there's a gap in understanding, our minds obsess over it. We replay it. We try to figure it out. That's what you're doing with the whisper. You're planting a seed of curiosity, a tiny, delicious uncertainty. And here's the most important part. After you say it, you don't explain. You don't laugh nervously. You don't ask, "What do you think I mean?" You just say it, and then you pull away. That's the spark, the moment that turns a normal hug into something she remembers. Phase 4. The art of the exit. How you let go matters. Most people think the hug ends when you stop touching, but that's not true. The hug ends when the feeling of the hug ends, and how you exit determines whether that feeling lingers or evaporates. Here's the wrong way to do it. You let go abruptly, turn away, immediately start talking about something random, break eye contact, shift your energy completely. That's like ending a song by slamming your hand on the piano keys. It ruins the whole thing. The right way to exit a hug is gradual, intentional, controlled. Here's how. You don't release both hands at the same time. You release one hand first, slowly. Let it slide down her back slightly as you pull it away. Then, a half second later, you release the other hand, but even slower. Let it linger just a fraction of a second longer than feels normal. This does something subtle but powerful. It communicates that you're not in a rush, that you're not uncomfortable with closeness, that you're fully in control of the moment. It sends the message, I'm choosing to let go, not because I have to, but because I want to. And that tiny shift, that micro moment of control, creates a feeling of incompleteness in her mind. It's like you're leaving the door slightly open, like the interaction isn't fully finished, like there's more to come. And psychologically, that feeling of unfinished business is incredibly powerful. It keeps you on her mind. Phase 5. The final look. Sealing the memory. Here's something most people don't know about memory. We don't remember experiences evenly. We remember the peaks and the endings. Psychologists call this the peak-end rule. It means that how an experience ends has a disproportionate impact on how we remember the entire thing. So if you exit the hug beautifully, but then immediately break eye contact, look away, get awkward, or shift your energy, you ruin the entire sequence. The final piece of the puzzle is the look. In the 3 seconds after you fully let go, after your hands are no longer touching her, you hold eye contact. Not in a creepy, unblinking, intense way, but in a calm, steady, confident way. Your eyes are soft but focused. Your expression is neutral but warm. Maybe there's a tiny smile at the corner of your mouth. Just a hint. Just enough to communicate, I know something you don't. And here's the key. You don't fill the silence. You don't say, "So anyway," or, "Well, or nervously laugh. You just look at her. For 3 seconds. That's it. This is the moment that seals everything. Because in those 3 seconds, her brain is processing the entire interaction. The way you held her, the way you whispered, the way you let go, the way you're looking at her now. And if you hold your ground, if you don't flinch, if you don't rush to fill the space with words, you communicate something incredibly attractive. You're comfortable with tension. You're comfortable with silence. You're comfortable with intensity. And most men, they're not. Most men panic in moments like this. They break the eye contact. They laugh. They say something to relieve the pressure. But you don't. And that difference is what makes you unforgettable. Let's zoom out for a second and talk about why this entire method works. It all comes down to one core principle: intention versus neediness. When a man touches a woman because he needs her validation, her affection, her approval, she feels it, and it repels her. Not because she's cruel, but because neediness communicates insecurity. And insecurity, at a biological level, doesn't trigger attraction. It triggers caretaking instincts at best and discomfort at worst. But when a man touches a woman because he's fully present, fully confident, fully grounded in himself, because he's offering a moment rather than taking one, that creates a completely different response. It activates attraction. Because confidence is attractive. Presence is attractive. Emotional clarity is attractive. And all of those qualities are communicated through touch. You don't have to tell her you're confident. You don't have to explain that you're grounded. You just show her, through the way you hold her, through the way you move, through the way you exist in that moment. That's the language of the body. And when you speak it fluently, when you speak it with intention and calm, she responds, not because you tricked her, but because you communicated something real. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds complicated. What if I mess it up? What if I think too much about the steps and it comes across as robotic? And that's a fair concern. But here's the thing. The goal isn't to memorize a script and perform it perfectly. The goal is to internalize the principles so that they become natural. Think about learning to drive a car. At first, you're hyper-aware of everything, where your hands go on the wheel, how much pressure to put on the gas, when to check your mirrors. It feels overwhelming. But after a while, you don't think about those things anymore. You just drive. The mechanics become automatic, and you can focus on the road, the conversation, the music. This is the same. At first, yes, you'll be conscious of where your hands are, how long you're holding the hug, what you're saying in the whisper. But the more you practice, the more it becomes second nature. And once it's second nature, it doesn't feel like a technique. It just feels like you. The version of you who's present, who's confident, who's intentional, and that's the version of you she'll remember. Here's what a lot of people don't realize. The power of a single, well-executed hug doesn't end when the hug ends. It creates a ripple effect. Because when you hug her this way, when you create that micro moment of emotional intensity, that brief flash of who is this person, you shift the entire dynamic between you. Suddenly, you're not just another guy she met. You're the guy who made her feel something. And here's the thing about feelings. They linger. Hours later, maybe even days later, she'll think about that moment. She'll replay it in her mind. She'll wonder what you meant when you whispered in her ear. She'll remember the way you looked at her afterward, and every time she replays it, the memory gets stronger. That's how emotional imprints work. They don't fade, they deepen. So when you see her again, when you text her, when you interact with her in any way, she's already carrying that feeling with her, that curiosity, that subtle attraction. You've already planted the seed, and all you have to do is water it. Before we wrap up, I want to make something very clear. This isn't really about the hug. I mean, yes, the hug matters. The technique matters. The details matter. But what this is really about is learning to communicate with your entire presence, not just your words. It's about understanding that attraction isn't logical. It's not a checklist. It's not about saying the right things or looking a certain way or having a perfect resume. Attraction is emotional. It's visceral. It's about how you make someone feel when they're around you. And the beautiful thing is, you have more control over that than you think. You control it through your presence, through your intention, through your willingness to be fully there, fully grounded, fully confident in who you are. The hug is just one expression of that, but when you get it right, when you learn to touch with intention, to move with calm, to exist without apology, everything changes, not just in how she sees you, but in how you see yourself. I want to leave you with this. The next time you hug her, whether it's someone you've just met, someone you've known for a while, or someone you're trying to create a deeper connection with, I want you to try this. Not as a performance, not as a trick, but as an experiment in presence. Be there, fully, completely. Feel the weight of your hand on her back. Feel the rhythm of your breathing. Feel the electricity in the space between you, and then when the moment is right, do what I've shown you. Position your hands with intention. Hold the hug for just the right amount of time. Whisper something that lingers. Let go slowly. Look at her with calm confidence, and then watch what happens, because I promise you, she'll feel it. Maybe not consciously, maybe not in words, but in goosebumps, in a shift in her breathing, in the way she looks at you differently after. That's the power of presence. That's the language of touch. And that's what makes you unforgettable. So tell me, have you ever had a moment like this? A hug that shifted everything? Or maybe you've been on the receiving end of one. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. And if you found this helpful, if it gave you a new way of thinking about connection and presence, do me a favor, subscribe to Psychology with Natalie Whitman, because we're just getting started. I'll see you in the next one.